Welcome back. As you know, if you were listening a few moments ago, we're speaking with the two lead actors from Greater Tuna, Algernon Damasa and David Reyes. One of the questions I wanted to ask each of you, and I don't care who answers first, talk about the challenge in this play of playing so many different characters and switching so quickly from a young juvenile delinquent to an old lady at a funeral.
Well, one sort of myth that a lot of actors can fall into is getting very precious about the process and getting into a character and emotionally preparing ourselves. And an assignment like this really requires you to kind of drop all of that nonsense and really just do it. We're literally finishing our costume changes just in time to enter the stage and start our scene and pick it right up. And so it really forces you to just do it, just say it, and just connect to the story you're telling and trust that your character is there, you've done your preparation, and you just do it. There's nothing special about it.
One big thing that a lot of people don't see, and we acknowledge at the end of the show, but we have two ladies that are backstage as our dressers. And I have several more quick costume changes in Act 1 than Algernon does. And my dresser, when I'm walking back, she's already prepped and ready for me. She's got my jacket ready for me or my next wig. So I see her and know this is who I have to be. And as long as she's on top of things, I'm ready to go. I'll actually run back and say, who am I now? And she's like, you're Petey. Mm-hmm. And I jump right on and be able to go back in.
No, of course, I'm when it comes to acting, I've never done it. I'm sort of ignorant. I just watch my kids do it. But a lot of actors will actually make sort of a slapsticky thing about changing costumes so fast. Wig comes out crooked, clothes come out backwards. That's not part of what you're doing.
No, not really. We try to make sure that we look exactly like we have.
Who you're supposed to be.
We make several appearances. Well, there's a couple characters that only appear once. Mm-hmm. But like Petey Fisk makes several appearances, so I always make sure he looks exactly like when he came back out.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask another one. In researching this, and we were talking about this off air, when researching this is written 1981, produced shortly after, and as Seal was pointing out, it was just after the Civil War. I mean, not far after Civil War ended, Vietnam ended. The country was real smart, aching from that whole experience. A lot of veterans driven underground, and I'm wondering, what did the writers think? What were they trying to do with regard to the time of that day? I mean, what were they saying about small town America, or were they saying something bigger about the United States after the Vietnam War?
Well, it's really interesting because, and I'm going to sort of tackle both your questions here. In coming through this process, we've really come to treat these characters like real people. They're exaggerated, but they're all based on real people. And so although they're slightly larger than life, they're actually very full-hearted people. And they're in this culture that seems to have found a way to insulate itself from all that cynicism of Vietnam and Watergate. And even today, there's a very full-hearted, almost naivete about that kind of cynicism. And so we treat these characters very much like real people. The play itself is actually a real drama with very comical characters. Mm-hmm. And so we treat them with a lot of respect. We really present them in a very straightforward way, and that's kind of how we treat them. They've become like real people to us.
Mm-hmm. Would you agree?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You were talking about a point at which you have one character who's actually selling surplus guns or used military weaponry. It's after the Vietnam War. That's sort of a comical shtick. What was that saying? You have a character you had mentioned who was part of the KKK. Was that, so it is making light, but it has a very serious underpinning too, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm. I was surprised at how dark it was. I mean, it acknowledges this dark side. It doesn't dwell on it, but there's a character in this play, and there's this very interesting, talk about Elmer. And Elmer Watkins comes out and, he's this guy who comes and he really makes the most use of the platform that he has. And he says these vile things, and the audience doesn't know whether to laugh or not. It just presents that side of our humanity.
Can you give us a few of those vile things very quickly?
Well, Elmer Watkins, he's, I kind of picture him as this guy who kind of lives off on his own. He runs a business repairing street railings, guardrails and all that. He comes on, he talks about Agent Orange, and he talks about how it's a myth. And if he was on broadcast today in 2013, he'd be talking about, the birth certificate and all that stuff. You don't have to change a line of the play. You know who that guy is.
And he's a very sincere, full-hearted guy who really cares about his country and is really sincerely worried. And it comes out in this strange way.
And you're right. It's the same kind of people we see in our community.
Mm-hmm.
One of the other things I want to know, with such diverse characters, does the play illustrate this sort of underlying love for the community? We all sort of love our oddballs, and we may be one of the oddballs. And that's what I see with Doña Ana County too, is that you have this diverse community, and we all will say things that might be vile to the guy standing next to us, but in the end, we all stand next to each other.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like after the show, although everybody comes up and says that they just love Petey Fist so much, because Petey Fist works for the Greater Tuna Humane Society. And he just always, he likes to bring pets. He finds the pets everywhere. He's got over 24 dogs, even more cats. He's got a snake. He's got ducks, and he's got Yippee, the lovely rat terrier, part Chihuahua, that he's trying to get adopted to somebody. Somebody out there, maybe a deaf person, would love to have this dog. He's just a little bit hyperactive, but he's a really good pet. So again, if there's any deaf people listening today, you can call Petey Fist, and he'll get you this little dog named Yippee. Right, Yippee? I have Yippee here at the studio with me. Come here, Yippee. Okay, back in your kennel. Thank you, boy. Thank you. Good boy.
They just ruined Pet of the Week. They're our new Pet of the Week. We're talking about the Greater Tuna. It's a production being put on by the No Strings Theater Company, and that's located in the north end of downtown, what used to be the downtown mall. Now it's Main Street. They have extended the run to September 15th, and you guys have a production coming up Thursday.
Yes, we do. That'll be at 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock Thursday, but then you pick up your regular weekend,
yes,
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Friday and Saturday at 8 p.m. and Sunday at 2:30 matinee.
And this is a fascinating, I think it's a fascinating story about small town America, small town USA.
Let me switch gears a little bit and ask you gentlemen, how did each of you get drawn to acting in the first place?
I was 8 years old, and a school teacher introduced me to an actor named Richard Cavanaugh, who you won't have heard of because he was a stage actor. That was his whole career. He was nominated for a Tony, but that's about the height of his notoriety. And he was a resident actor at the Trinity Repertory Company, which is my hometown theater. And Providence, Rhode Island. Thank you. And she very wisely kind of took the class off on a tour and left me alone with this actor. And that was the day that ruined my life as a competitive, economically earning human being.
So actors' shirts are always wrinkled, aren't they?
It's true. And it literally, from the age of 8, my whole life has been about training and working, mostly on stages, although I do act in front of a camera, too.
You?
David?
Probably in the 5th grade is when I first got cast in a show called The Magic Cookie Jar. Mm-hmm. And I was so nervous doing that show, I broke out in hives over my entire body. But after that, I was just hooked, just kept pursuing it. As I went on into junior high, there was other things. I volunteered first for shows in that. Got into high school, continued on to that. Got scholarships in college and all that. And just kept going from there. I mean, I owe a lot of my experience, especially from this show. Everybody always says that I've got great facial expressions. Just the littlest thing that happens and I react to it. Mm-hmm. They say they just love it. And then
you actually took the words right out of my mouth, because people can hear the voices, and we'll have you do some more of them in a minute. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that I was most amazed by was how different your face was when you were playing different characters. I didn't know faces could change that much.
Well, I contribute all that to a company back in Kansas City, where I'm originally from, the Martin City Melodrama Company. The producer-director there, Jeannie Beechwood, just, with melodrama, everything's bigger, faster, funnier. Mm-hmm. So that's where, all my big expression, big face, the big smile, the big eyes are making everything really small. that all comes from there.
The stage work always seems to be bigger. Like I've been on sets for films, and it's the camera really can zoom in on something, so you don't have to be as big. But on stage, you always have to be a lot bigger. Have you, either of you, done any film work?
Oh yes,
Both of us.
We'll have to hear about that when we come back. We're going to have to go to the local news, and I think these folks have actually got the local news.
I thought we were going to do that.
I think that's where it went.
We've been fired.
They're not ready for prime time.
Let's go
And
get
then
those
we'll be back with
All
Speak
right.
Up Las Cruces.
Here's Peter and Keith on KOBE.
Welcome back to Speak Up Las Cruces. When we left off, Algernon was about to answer Keith's question about some of the differences between film and theater, both of which I think he loves.
Yeah, I mean, for the first, 10, 15 years of acting, it was just all about stage. And I was really excited about having the actors so close to me. Live theater, it all happens in the room with you. You're in the room and the event happens in the room and everyone's there reacting to it together. It's very democratic in a way. And when you work on camera, it's completely different. What you have to do has to be much more narrowly focused because it's not for a room full of people. It's for a camera. It's for a microphone. And you have to know how the microphone and the camera see you and hear you. And you have to shape your performance that way. And then it's created in editing, that it's really much more of a contrived experience. Whereas in theater, it's live, and what happens in that room is part of the event. Yeah. And that's more exciting to me, but acting on camera requires a kind of discipline and focus that I've actually found very valuable in terms of my stage work. So they both feed each other.
Seal, you probably, I don't know if you've done any directing for film. I don't know if you've done any directing for film, but I would imagine from a director's standpoint, it's also important to think differently from stage. And going on what he said, it's sort of like that time when you're driving down down the street in your car, you see this beautiful scene, it's the mountain, and you think, that's a beautiful scene, I'm going to snap a picture of it. And then you snap a picture of it, you develop it, and it's not nearly as beautiful as you remember it because you weren't thinking, what makes that beautiful to me? And so when you point the camera, you're just doing sort of a scattergun. But as a director, I would imagine that comes into play if you're doing film versus on stage.
I actually haven't done any film, so I don't know the answer to that question.
Well, maybe...
Well, I'll throw in an answer. One of the main differences is the control that the director has. Seal can tell these guys everything she wants to tell them, how she wants them to do it, give them all the pointers.
Because they're all there.
And then when she's sitting there and they do whatever they do. And it may follow what she said and may not. But if she's
no.
If she's
That's not what happens.
If she's directing a film and they do their version of events instead of hers, she smiles and says, cut, take two.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a big difference.
And then there's also the editing. You can go back and edit a film or video in a way that you can't with a play.
But just to correct what you said, I don't tell them what to do. They do things, and I tell them if it works. I mean, that's pretty much what's happened for this show. I give notes, and there's some things that we've tried that I actually came up with, and whenever they do it, I pat myself on the head and think that's good. But
based on that, though, you have Las Cruces had a lot of good actors. When you're participating in a show, of course, these guys brought this show to you. But when that's not the case, and you're choosing the show, are you thinking of the actors you want to play these things because you are sort of a hands-off person? You know what they can deliver, and you know that they can deliver what you're envisioning as a director.
I go through a lot of agony deciding on a season always, because I need to know that there are people in town who can do the plays that we're selecting. And one thing we really want to be very careful of is not to precast everything. This play, Algernon and Dave were obviously the people to do it. The next play, we're having open auditions. And the third play that I'm personally directing is precast. And if we have too much that's precast at our theater, then people start to get the feeling that it's a click. So we want to really stay away from that. But that said, I always want to make sure that if we're picking something to be produced at the theater, that it can be done.
Yeah.
That we've got the audition pool for it.
I'd like to ask David first, and then Algernon. To you, what's the hardest thing you ever have to do in acting? What's hard for you?
Learning the lines. That's a big part. I mean, even when we're in our rehearsals and having your script in hand, trying to read what you're supposed to say and read your notes or your blocking and stuff. Once the book's out of hand, then we can start playing. With the both of us, we had the scripts, and we were probably about, even before we hit our tech week, we were both pretty much off book, didn't call for too many lines during rehearsals. We were probably about maybe 95%, but we were actually able to play more with the character, get deeper into the character, and understand, if I do this a little bit, and again, that's when Seal would say, yes, that works, but that doesn't work. And, again, with having the live audience there, our lighting person, Danny Wade, said, he was enjoying watching it from up in the booth. And he says it's always neat to him that when the audience gets there, it changes. Mm-hmm. And it is. When you feel that people laughing, there were things that we were saying in the beginning of the show that, Seal had seen, she's seen it over and over and over again, but having new people see it and them laughing, it's like, oh, we got to laugh on that. Okay, that's good. Hearing that laughter, or if they gasp at something, or somebody, they're shocked by it, that fuels us still at the same time. It's like, okay, well, this is going great. If all of a sudden we're hearing crickets the whole time, it's like, oh, something happened. We've done something wrong today.
Mm-hmm. Algernon, what's the hardest thing for you in acting?
I think that the constant challenge is to be very vigilant about telling the truth. I mean, we're playing 20 characters between the two of us. They're very funny characters. They're very different than David's personality and my personality. But in order to